a brutal galaxy where fanatically religious humanity wages an unending war, where terrifying aliens seek the destruction of life, where another plane of reality exists, one filled with bloodthirsty demons and ruthless gods actively seeking the doom of all who enter it, where magic and other physics-defying phenomena exist. Upon seeing all of this, it is hard to imagine that the setting of Warhammer 40k is a grimdark manifestation of the far future of our very own timeline. To understand how technology-focused humanity found itself in such a destructive future, one must delve into its roots. Welcome to our series on Warhammer 40k and the Horus Heresy, explaining the origins of the Imperium and Chaos. This first video will explore how humanity conquered the galaxy twice. And this story is brought to you alongside another, that being our sponsor Double Blind by Jay McCoy. This book is a big hitter in the world of lit RPG, stories with video game-like settings. In this case, the mysterious aftermath of a meteor strike leaves protagonist Matt trapped within the System, a world of scheming and stealth in which he must hide the fact that he is no NPC but a powerful agent. The new world is packed with exotic resources for corporations to exploit, and the unknown system giving out video game-style powers appears to itself have sinister intentions. Matt must adapt to survive, build his in-game class and skills carefully, and be mindful that if he fails, he dies. But if he succeeds, the rewards in this new world are beyond imagination. So once you're done with the beginning of our story here today, go check out Double Blind, with our link in the description. Humanity, driven by the unrelenting need for progress and expansion, started colonizing the solar system in the third millennium. After pushing terraforming technology to its limits, the entire solar system was colonized, and to enable further colonization, massive spaceships were created to reach other stars. This era was known as the Age of Progress, and lasted until the 15th millennium. The defining factor of this era was sublight speed travel. This limiting factor meant that each star system that humans inhabited was isolated. To reach other star systems, at least a few decades were needed, with longer travel lasting entire generations. Even communication couldn't be established, as a one-way signal that travelled at light speed would reach colonies only after a few years. The era-changing moment was the invention of warp drive, an engine that allowed entering an entirely different dimension, called the warp or immaterium, through which travel that well exceeded the speed of light was possible. Humanity soon started colonizing the entire galaxy. As fast as humanity's territory grew, so did the development of artificial intelligence. Automatons, called Men of Iron, helped mankind improve to unthinkable levels. This never-ending progress for the sake of progress gave name to this era the Dark Age of Technology. Humanity forgot why new technologies were made in the first place. Thought of what more can be invented or created was the only purpose driving humanity. Many technological wonders were built, every disease was eradicated, but so too came completely useless inventions and weapons of mass destruction. Technology achieved such unbelievable levels that the standard template constructs, computers capable of creating blueprints needed for creating basic tools and utility devices, became revered as artifacts of unfathomable worth and used to produce the highest class military equipment. All golden ages are destined to fade into twilight sooner or later, and calamity struck after 10,000 years, around the 25th millennium. The Men of Iron rebelled, starting a devastating war that almost wiped out humanity. Hundreds of billions died, and many planets were reduced to a nuclear wasteland. After this galaxy-spanning conflict ended, all usage of AI was banned, and every subsequent attempt to create one was met with instant execution. All throughout human-colonized worlds, extensive warp usage began creating mutated humans, among whom were Psykers, men who could draw power from the Immaterium to use sorcery. Progress-oriented society saw this as another opportunity to evolve, and encouraged experimentation with these unknown powers. especially since development through AI was no longer an option. However, this was a disastrous idea. Soon, weak-minded psykers got swayed by the demons that inhabited the warp. Consequently, cults, possessions, and wars started by power-seeking mages laid destruction upon most human worlds. These two apocalyptic-level events were enough to name the following era the Age of Strife, but soon a third source of calamity was thrown into the mix. Due to the decadence of the Eladari Empire and advanced alien species, an enormous disturbance of the Immaterium called the Warp Storm was created that made travel through the warp impossible, isolating all star systems already devastated by wars and demons summoned by psykers. Few worlds remained inhabited by humans after 5 millennia of destruction, as most of them were either destroyed by aliens or the folly of humanity. One of the surviving worlds was Earth, now called Terra, and its moon Luna. There, tribes of techno-barbarians were battling for dominance. A man who would later be known as the Emperor of Mankind, an impossibly powerful psyker, who at this point was 38,000 years old, decided that in order to make humanity great again, he would have to claim leadership. To that end, he began the creation of a genetically modified army. First, he poured all his knowledge, skill, and effort into handcrafting the perfect DNA for a soldier. The Adeptus Custodes were unrivaled warriors. However, the time required to create one was so extensive that few of them could be created, so rather than serving as frontline infantry, they were used as personal bodyguards to the Emperor. The soon-to-be Emperor's second creation was the Thunder Warriors, who were capable of being mass-produced, but due to the fast manipulation of human DNA, they were short-lived, mentally unstable, and prone to mutations. After the Emperor united Terra, he had the Thunder Warriors all executed. To create a large, mass-produced army, the Emperor needed a superior DNA base. To achieve that, he created 20 sons based on his own DNA, each one inheriting one of the Emperor's traits. They were named Primarchs, and in order to enhance them, the Emperor merged warp entities with their souls. Because of this, the Chaos Gods saw them as a threat to their existence, and used their strength to scatter the Primarchs throughout the galaxy while they were still infants. However, not all was lost for the Emperor, for he used the Primarchs' gene seed to create the Adeptus Astartes, widely known as Space Marines. 20 legions were created. Each one started 10,000 strong, but over the years increased its size 10 times. Upon reaching Mars, the first surviving human civilization was found. Mechanicum, as they called themselves, was a machine cult seeking knowledge and technology of the past. The Emperor struck a deal with them called the Treaty of Olympus. The Mechanicum would supply the newly found Imperium with supplies, machines of war, and a fleet. In return, they would gain access to all found technology in reclaimed Forge worlds, while remaining an autonomous part of the Imperium. The next 200 years are called the Great Crusade. The period lasted between 798 M30 and 005 M31. Old human worlds were reclaimed from the Xenos, ergo aliens, or from humans, millions of whom joined the Imperial Army as Imperial Guard, soon becoming the primary fighting force. Not all humans were seen as friends. Many civilizations were beaten down and re-educated, while others were completely destroyed. During the Great Crusade, the Primarchs were found. All of them were found on human-inhabited worlds. Prior to the Emperor's arrival, almost all of them had become the leaders of their world. Each Primarch took command over the legion created from his gene seed. The first Legion of Dark Angels was led by Lionel Johnson, the third of the Emperor's children by Fulgrim, the fourth of Iron Warriors by Perturabo, the fifth of White Scars by Jagatai Khan, the sixth of Space Wolves by Leman Russ, the seventh of Imperial Fists by Rogol Dawn, 8th of Night Lords by Conrad Kurz, 9th of Blood Angels by Sanguinius, the 10th of Iron Hands by Ferrus Manus, 12th of World Eaters by Angron, 13th of Ultramarines by Rabute Guilliman, 14th of Death Guard by Mortarion, 15th of Thousand Suns by Magnus the Red, 16th of Lunar Wolves by Horus Lupercal, 17th of Word Bearers by Lorgar Aurelian, 18th of Salamanders by Vulcan, 19th of Raven Guard by Corvus Corax, and 20th of Alpha Legion by Alpharius and Omegon. The 2nd and 11th Legion Primarchs were disposed of sometime after their reunification with the Emperor. However, all information regarding these events was classified or destroyed. In just 200 years, nearly the entire galaxy was united under the banner of the Imperium. Most of the dangerous Xenos races were obliterated or on the run. Only one race was still considered a grave threat: the Orks. This savage species could muster enormous warhords called Waaagh under the leadership of their most powerful warlord. In the year 000 M31, the Emperor decided to eliminate the Orkish threat. He assembled a strike force to destroy the largest Waaagh in the Ullanor system. The Imperial Army, under the direct command of the Emperor, was composed of 600 spaceships, 8 million soldiers of the Imperial Guard, 3 Primarchs, and a contingent of 100,000 Space Marines: Horus Lupercal with the Lunar Wolves, Rabute Gilliam with the Ultramarines, and Jagatai Khan with the White Scars. The last part of the army was Mechanicum-operated war machines. Among them were 100 Titans. They were the biggest Imperial war machines, each one 100 meters tall, capable of mass destruction. The Ork army, under war boss Ullanor was at least 5 times bigger, ranging in between 40 to 50 million soldiers. The Imperial army was split into 2 parts. One, under the command of the Emperor, consisted of all Titans, Ultramarines, White Scars, and the majority of the Imperial Guard. The second one, under command of Horus, consisted of Lunar Wolves, supported by about a quarter of the Imperial Guard. The Emperor led his contingent to attack the outer planets, drawing out most of the Orks from Ullanor Prime, where the warboss resided. Taking advantage of the gap in the defences, Horus's army advanced straight to the capital. Thousands of dropships and drop pods shuttled the army, while heavy gunships deployed tanks and provided air support, surrounding Ullanor's heavily fortified palace. The Orks attacked landing zones, spilling out of the palace, again falling into the trap of leaving important positions. Horus and the first company of Lunar Wolves teleported to the base of the main tower where Ullanor resided. He then took his 10 best soldiers to kill the warboss, who was defended by his 40 strongest Orks, the Knobs. Brutal melee combat ensued, where Horus dueled and defeated Ullanor, throwing his dying opponent from the tower roof, effectively breaking the morale of the Waaagh. Of the 10 Terminators, only one survived, gore-drenched Ezekiel Abaddon, captain of the First Company. In the following hours, tens of thousands of Orks stuck between Terminator Space Marines and surrounding forces were slaughtered. Dozens of pretenders claimed the title of warboss, and the place of every claimant was taken by 2 more. Infighting caused more losses among the Orks than the Imperial army. Methodical massacres done by humanity resulted in the complete eradication of the Orks in Ullanor and all nearby systems in less than a year. Ork losses were so devastating that the Emperor proclaimed the Orks would never again threaten the Empire. In celebration, the entire planet Ullanor Prime was turned into a monument. After a victorious parade in front of the Emperor of Mankind, Malkador, the Regent of Terra, and 16 Primarchs, the Emperor surprised everyone by announcing his retirement to Terra. To lead the Great Crusade in his stead, he appointed Horus as a war master, the supreme leader of the army. Soon, more changes came, and the High Lords of Terra started to administer the Imperium. Armies were forced to carry civilians, such as journalists or propagandists, on board the spaceships. Taxes and levies were to be collected from newly conquered worlds. The dissatisfaction of the Primarchs only grew when the Emperor seemingly withdrew from the public eye, not involving himself with any known matters. Tensions were rising between the brothers and the state. In less than a year, legions almost started fighting over the use of psykers. The Council of Nicaea was to determine the future fate of the psykers. The Emperor would pass the final verdict. The abolitionists reminded everyone how psykers led to the destruction of hundreds of worlds, how occultic practices stood against the morals of the Imperium of Man. The defenders of psykers spoke of the overwhelming importance of their powers. Moreover, they reminded everyone that the Emperor was a psyker himself. The third option was presented by librarians, space marines who were also psykers. Their idea was to centralize the librarians' education under the Emperor's supervision. This offer appeased almost all present. However, the speech of Magnus the Red, the second most powerful psyker after the Emperor, decided the outcome. Full of pride, he spoke about the pursuit of knowledge and how it should never be restricted. Everything that could be learned should be known, as there is no such thing as evil knowledge. Downplaying the dangers of the warp, he instructed that illustrious humans should develop the science. He then spoke about Plato's cave, where humanity looked at the shadows, thinking that was reality. In such a place, the one who saw the real world should guide the others to enlightenment. The Emperor was angered at Magnus, as his son, who inherited psychic powers, was blinded by ambition. The Emperor's judgment was to ban psykers, seeing that resisting the temptations of the warp is too hard for humans. The verdict was followed by a threat that severe punishment would follow if any legion broke this law. Magnus had sworn that he would never use psychic powers again, a promise he never intended to uphold. Although the galaxy was again in human hands, cracks had already begun to form. The Primarchs were dissatisfied that the Imperium was ruled by the High Lords of Terror, not them. They were to listen to a brother, an equal, not the superior father, who now stopped involving himself in governing. How will the situation escalate? Find out in the next episode. Our series on the Warhammer 40k Horus Heresy will continue, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.